Let's have a look at exactly what is changing in the driving test, what's changing in the booking system, and what should you guys do right now. Okay, so to give you an idea of what's happening, the DVSA have been trialling a new form of driving test at around 20 driving test centres over the last 6 months. And now they're deciding to roll this out to every driving test centre, so they are happy with the results. Let's start with what hasn't changed in the driving test. The standard of the driving test hasn't changed. It's not going to be any easier, and it's not going to be any harder. But the routes and the booking style definitely has. Up to now, when you went through your driving test, each test centre would have between 8 and 12 set driving test routes on the sat-nav that the examiner would follow. These might change occasionally, 6-12 months, or they might rotate them slightly, but that's about it. If you've got a town route, that would be it. Your route would be around town with a set number of challenges. And you could always define these into, say, a meeting traffic route, a rural route, and depending on what direction you went, that was generally the sort of style of route you would get. This has now changed. To cut a long story short, there is a huge number of accidents and fatalities on country roads, particularly in people around the age of 17 to 25. So the DVSA think the obvious solution to this is to help people, when doing their driving test, encourage them to be going on more rural country roads and dual carriageways. This means the driving test routes are far more likely to have both dual carriageways and country roads on your driving test. Basically, if you know either of those are a weak spot for you, make sure you practice them. Now for Stafford, this isn't going to change drastically because I know Stafford has at least 5 rural driving test routes already. So if you're learning in Stafford or you're looking at my test routes on my website, joshadrivinginstructor.com, you're going to know exactly where those are regardless. And because Stafford's reasonably small, they're quite limited as to where they can actually take you. And again, Newcastle on the other side of this also only has a couple of rural test routes, which you can find on my website, by the way, if you're doing a driving test in Newcastle under Lyme. So this is still going to be quite area dependent, because after all, your driving test can't be any further than 15 to 20 minutes from the driving test centre, because your driving test is 40 minutes. You can only go out 15 to 20 minutes because you've also got to get back, and they're not changing the length of the driving test. So basically, if you can find a rural road within 20 minutes of the driving test centre, you're going to have a damn good idea that that's going to be somewhere on the driving test. So if you are learning to drive with your driving instructor or someone else, and you're driving around town a lot, maybe you're in a city, and you haven't touched any country roads, now is the time to start. Get some suggestions to them, learn some country roads, because if you are living in a city, it can be a bit of a shock if you're not used to driving on national speed limit roads. Trust me from experience, I've seen it lots of times. I get someone that comes from Wolverhampton to do a driving test in Stafford. They're all great, the driving's perfect, and then I say, right, have you ever done rural roads? They say no, and we're on a rural road, and next thing you know, they cannot drive. They do not know what the hell is going on. It's scary for them, it's scary for me. It's okay, but it just means that lots of practice quick before the driving test, and that can be hard to do. So highly recommend get on the country roads. What else is changing on the driving test? As I mentioned before, the driving test length is around 35 to 40 minutes long, and this is staying exactly the same. So if they're focusing on country roads and other things, they're going to have to take certain things away. So what are they taking away? Well, the number of stops on your driving test is currently 4 times. This often includes an angled start and a hill start. They are now reducing this to 3 times. Winner, 1 less pullover, perfect. And why not? Because if you can pull over once and twice, then what's the difference between 4 times? Currently, 1 in 3 people have to do an emergency stop manoeuvre on their driving test on top of their parking manoeuvre. This is now changing to 1 in 7. Still need to do it because someone's going to get it, but at least you're far less likely to have to do it. What else is changing? Well, currently most driving tests follow sat-nav for around 20 minutes of the driving test, and then they follow the examiner's directions for a further 20 minutes. Well, quite sensibly, I think, they are increasing the independent drive, which is following sat-nav, for 30 minutes or more of the driving test. It could even be the whole driving test. And this does make sense because when you're driving in real life, even if you're going with your mate to the zoo or, theme park, Alton Towers Thorpe Park, is your mate literally going to be directing you, or are you just going to follow a sat-nav? I know I would just be following a sat-nav. I would not be trusting my wife to be following directions. She's not good. She's not good. And just to clarify with your independent driving, lots of people worried about the going the wrong way. You're not actually tested on your directions. If you go the wrong way, it doesn't actually matter at all. There's no button to say, oh, they went the wrong way, there's a fault there. You're actually tested on doing things safely. So if anything, when you go the wrong way, they want to see that you go the wrong way and that you deal with it correctly. we shouldn't even use the word wrong way, because it's not. There is no wrong way, really. There is ideally try and follow the sat nav. And if you miss a turning or you couldn't get in the lane, then just let the road redirect you, let the sat nav redirect you to where you need to go. And that's very hard to do on your driving test when you're feeling the pressure of this person staring at you and you're thinking, oh my God, they want me to go that way. And very hard to do. And the other thing to make sure you do is don't stare at the sat nav, because you're staring at the sat nav and next thing you know, you're in the blowing hedge there and what the hell, I'm in the hedge. And I've seen it lots of times with learners. First time they're introduced to sat nav, their driving just goes out the window. Anything with driving, we shouldn't be staring. Point of this is, if you haven't done sat nav, practice. Even if you're practicing with mum, dad, whoever, just ask them to put a destination on the sat nav and not tell you where it is, because it's no good if you know exactly where you're going. Put the sound on, make sure the sound is on, doesn't matter if it's Google Maps or whatever, and just press go. You try and drive independently. If you can, excellent. If you can't, got a problem, practice more, fix the problem. What's changing with the bookings and cancellations? Well, you are going to need 10 days in order to change or cancel your driving test. Anything after that, doesn't matter what you do, you cannot get your money back and you can't change. You can cancel it still, but they will not refund you. And I know why they're doing it. They're trying to do it to stop the bots and stop these companies that are scalping from profiteering. And if they've got it till last second, they keep it till the very last second and no one else can get it. Unfortunately for the normal people, which is 99% of us, it means if you do happen to be ill or something unexpected happens, you get a flat tire in the morning or a flaming engine light, you are pretty much stuffed. And I say this from experience. Last Wednesday, I had a meeting at 7 a.m, pull off the drive just enough to realise I have a flat tire, and I had a driving test at 9 a.m. That was a stressful morning, let me tell you, because DVSA were not going to give me my money back or my students' money back or anyone their money back if we didn't turn up. Good news is I did manage to get to the garage at 8:30, get the tyre fixed, and my student passed. And hopefully by now you've also heard that only learners can book their driving test now. No more driving instructor bookings. I've never booked students' driving tests anyway, so it's not going to affect me. I think 95% of instructors don't. I'm here to teach people to drive, help them for the driving journey, not to book driving tests. But if your instructor was planning to book your driving test, it's no longer going to happen. What are your thoughts on this? Is this a good thing or not? You also only get 2 opportunities to change your driving test and move. After that, you have to cancel, put it back in the system and try and book another one. This is to stop those bots and people that are holding onto those tests and trying to swap 15 different tests around all at once and just juggling them around, stopping anyone else booking a driving test. On top of that, you are now locked to your local driving test centre. What do you think of that? You can't just drive across the country for 2-3 hours to a driving test centre where they've actually got availability. You've got to stay in your vicinity of 2-3 driving test centres, which means if your test centre hasn't got any driving tests available, you can't just go to the next one available. How's that going to work? I would love to know. Someone tell me how that's going to work. Hopefully it's going to work well in the long run, maybe not short term, but long term, because if you're not driving to another county to take a driving test slot there, someone else can't drive from 3 other counties to take your driving test slot from your local test centre. We might end up spaces again, but who knows? That's the idea. The wait times on the driving test are still really long. They have brought in more examiners and they keep trying to bring in more examiners. Unfortunately, they keep leaving as well. I think they got a net increase of, say, 40 examiners across the country from the 300 that they actually brought in because the rest left. Could be a problem there. I don't know. I'm just a simple driving instructor, but it doesn't quite add up there. You might want to do something to the job to make it better. I don't know. Maybe give them a pay rise. Not sure. What do you think? But either way, driving tests are still going to be months away. They are trying to fix it still. They are bringing more people in, apparently, even from the army. We will see. But it's not going to be this summer. So overall, looks like long-term cancellations are going bye-bye. They might not go completely. You might still end up with the basic apps, but the automatic swapping and changing is going to be gone, which is going to be very good for everyone, hopefully, in the long term. But it does mean we're going to have to stop messing about and just turning up to test willy-nilly and just moving them left and right. We're going to have to be a bit more organised and go to that test when we are truly ready. It looks like we're going to end up with a bit more route variety. So you're not just going to end up with a rural route anymore, and that's my route for 35 minutes driving around on a country road. Instead, you're going to end up with 25% dual carriageway, 25% rural road, 25% busy town roundabouts, and they're going to split it up much more. It's going to be far more varied, include far more hazards, which is going to be really important for you to learn those hazards and practice the local area within the vicinity of your test centre. If you have a driving instructor, they will know, hopefully. Otherwise, if you're doing a test in Newcastle, Stafford, have a look at my website, joshyourdrivinginstructor.com. Got the test routes on there, got the main hazards on there that you are going to end up potentially getting on your driving test. What do you think about these changes? Is this going to make the road safer, reduce the risk to young people on rural roads? Is it going to help? And if you enjoyed the video, please drop a like so other people can find it. Every like encourages someone else to find the video as well. And that's what this channel is about. It's about getting people talking and increasing our chances of passing our driving test as quickly as possible. Best of luck in your test, everyone. I will see you all soon. Good luck.